I, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Zimbabwe and observe the laws of Zimbabwe. So help me God.
They were the cheers of an expectant nation, hopeful of a prosperous future. After 7 years of war and 15 years of illegal white rule, a new dawn in Zimbabwe. And with the lowering of the Union Jack in front of Prince Charles, Rhodesia waved goodbye to almost 90 years of British colonial rule. It was April 1980. The reign of Robert Mugabe had begun, one which would last for nearly 40 years. In the 70s, Mugabe was a freedom fighter, a Maoist revolutionary, leading ZANU guerrillas against white minority rule.
The armed struggle will continue until a settlement of our own liking emerges.
In 1979, that settlement arrived, with the Lancaster House peace agreement in London.
Yesterday, I fought you as an enemy. Today, you have become a friend and ally, with the same national interest, loyalty, rights and duties as myself.
But a ruthless regime began to show. Mugabe used bulldozers against his opponents. Others were slaughtered. The freedom fighter had morphed into a tyrant.
As long as dissidents come from a particular area, we will send troops to that area.
White farmers were evicted and arrested. By the turn of the century, Zimbabwe was in the grip of an economic crisis. Riots over food shortages, widespread strikes, inflation at more than 1,000%, and the old colonial masters were blamed.
We are not a British colony. Come on, you must know that.
Tell him again. Right. Tell him again.
We are not a British colony. What have the British to do with Zimbabwe? Who are you?
Tell him again.
You bloody idiots.
Britain had become an obsession. Mugabe's distrust was hardly surprising, given that colonial Rhodesia jailed him for 10 years. And when sanctions were imposed, he turned on Tony Blair.
Blair, keep your England and let me keep my Zimbabwe.
He blamed Gordon Brown too.
I know Brown is a little tiny dot on this world.
He did, though, like Britain's royal family. But in the end, Zimbabwe was suspended from the Commonwealth before he withdrew it altogether. Increasingly isolated and cut off from the outside world, the plight of Mugabe's Zimbabwe grew and grew. In 2008, a cholera epidemic gripped the country, killing hundreds.
Because of cholera, Mr. Brown wants military intervention. Sarkozy wants military intervention.
International outcry, but Mugabe was having none of it.
Let's tell them that the cholera cause doesn't exist anymore.
His grip on power would remain for almost another decade. But the aging dictator soon made mistakes. He attempted to line up his unpopular wife Grace to be his successor. Then he sacked his deputy, Emmerson Mnangagwa. In November 2017, Mugabe was placed under house arrest. He had allowed Mnangagwa to escape and plot with army generals against him. Initially, he attempted to cling on.
However, we cannot be guided by bitterness or vengefulness.
But a day later, he realised his time was up and resigned. In the Parliament building and in the streets of Harare, Zimbabweans couldn't contain their delight. Emmerson Mnangagwa was sworn in as Mugabe's successor.
So help me God.
Within the space of 10 days, Zimbabwe had changed forever. Mugabe, though, remained in denial about the state he had left his country in.
Ruined? Ruined, of course, no. If anything, there is, in comparison to other countries in Africa, there is greater prosperity here.
The scenes witnessed at the news of his resignation suggested otherwise. 37 years after their country was liberated from colonial rule, Zimbabweans finally felt free.
Thank you.